Hi there. Welcome home. It's good to see you. This is Mountain Home, a little corner of the internet where we can share our passion for the mountains, music, and everything in between. Today, I want to share with you my Banjo Orchestra, my collection of banjo instruments that I primarily use in my studio for recording when I do soundtrack work. So I generally do not take most of these instruments out for music sessions. When it comes to music festivals, jams, performances, anything like that, I generally only take a couple of them out. That would be the 5-string, the cello, banjo. So the vast majority of the instruments that I'm about to share with you generally just stay in the studio. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll be sharing details on each of the instruments, where their place is in a banjo orchestra. And please stay tuned to the end of the video where I will share a trailer for my OnlyFans page. Please enjoy. Okay, everyone, so this is the banjo orchestra that I've set up for my studio. A number of these instruments are custom builds, either by modifying off-the-shelf parts and assembling instruments that way, or just building instruments that are a little bit more whole cloth, a bit more bespoke and purpose-built. So I'll share with you what each of these banjos does. They are all unique and interesting in their own way. They all serve their own purpose. In a banjo orchestra, this would be really interesting, and I will start creating music outside of my work, where I create all different kinds of soundtracks. I would like to just start, just for fun, just putting on YouTube music, songs that people like, and I will do them all with a different theme. I can do mandolin orchestra, banjo orchestra, so I'll share what each of these sounds like and what's different about them. This is your standard 5-string banjo. This is a Kasuga, and I am very fond of this instrument, quite fond of the sound you get. That's your standard 5-string. In general, when people say banjo, they say that's the real banjo, but there's so much more to the world of banjos. So let's go ahead and have a look at probably the next most popular one is the 4-string banjo, which is back here, or the tenor banjo. Often this is used for Irish music. It's much more appropriate for strumming, while the 5-string banjo is really designed for high dexterity finger picking. The 4-string is meant more for strumming and melody or counter melody. Because of the higher tension strings, it really does lend itself well to chord bashing. Now, you do have the plectrum banjo, but basically that's just a 5-string banjo. It's the exact same thing, just without one of those. So I don't need one of those for my studio. If I wanted a plectrum banjo, I would just take that string off and play it like that. So you have the 6-string banjo next, which is the third most popular. And the reason why this is so popular is because guitarists do not have to learn a new instrument in terms of the way that the strings are configured with the tuning. This works well because, again, like the 4-string, you can do a bit of chord bashing, but you have to be a bit more careful, as the sound will get muddy very quickly. There's a lot more sustain than there is on other banjos, and more sympathetic resonance because of the 6 strings. You can play melodies on there, and again, it's for guitarists to pick up and be able to play, but it does have its own unique qualities. Because of the higher tension, it has a very different voice than the banjo. So it's a much deeper, warmer voice because of that high tension, and also you have access to this nice low tone here. That's quite nice, whereas the lowest you get on a 5-string is that. So that's quite nice. At this point, we're just going to go left to right now, because the order doesn't really matter at this point. Let's go ahead and start here at my favorite banjo, and this is the gold tone cello banjo. This is tuned a full octave below a 5-string banjo, and thusly it really fills in the low end. It's so fantastic. I just love taking this to trips up to the mountains, playing in small restaurants and bars, and just befriending people, and people will ask, hey, what is that? So you could sit outside by a lake and strum that out and pick some songs, and people will want to chat and ask about that instrument because it's just so deep and warm and soothing. It's not necessarily an instrument that stands on its own because of the range that it plays, and musically it's best to pair that with other banjo instruments. Next, we have our banjolin, and this is played like a mandolin. This one, particular one, is a George Houghton and Son that comes from around the 1940s to 50s. You get a nice strident voice with this instrument, and it really lends itself again to that mandolin sound. You can do your chop chords. It's decent for chord bashing, get a nice percussive sound, and it really does work well with other banjo instruments, and it's quite lovely. But because the body's so small, it is a little weak for melodies, this particular one. So it really is good at the job that it serves, but it doesn't have a wide range of purposes. Next, we have a custom instrument. This is a banjo mandola. So it's tuned CGDA. Now it is tuned like those have the same tuning, but this is a shorter scale and the strings are doubled to give you the chorus effect. It has the smaller body to give you that more strident sound. It's quite nice. It's not as good for chords, for chord bashing as the tenor, but when it comes to playing melodies or counter melodies, this one is really lovely, especially the tremolo on that. It's all a different sound. This is the banjo ukulele. It has such an interesting sound. This is what it sounds like. Oh, it looks like I'm in the middle of replacing the strings on that one. Well, I'll have to show you that one later then. Next on the ground here, we have a custom instrument that I have built over the past week. This is a lap steel banjo. It does what a lap steel does, but not the same way. You're familiar with lap steels from country music. This is a banjo, and again, you use that with a metal slide, but it is tuned to open G. The sound would be much stronger if it wasn't up against the carpet there, but this is an interesting instrument. It doesn't have as much sustain as an acoustic lap steel, but it's certainly interesting, and it definitely has its own voice, and it does actually surprisingly blend well with other banjo other banjo instruments quite well. Here we have a custom build. I used off-the-shelf components and I modified some banjo parts, and I obtained a gold tone fretless bass banjo. This normally sits on a body size that would be the same as the cello banjo, but I wasn't able to acquire one of those parts, so I just used an 11-incher. So this is such an interesting instrument. I think it really stands on its own. It's quite unique. It has a distinct look, and it's really eye-catching. So on stage, it's going to have that charisma that people like to see when it comes to on-stage performances, especially if you're with other banjos. Now, this is a Remo black, and in general, you would use the black to focus some of the instrument's voice towards the low end. So it sort of cuts down on the high end, and it really accentuates the low end. So this is an instrument that whenever I hand that to a bassist, they're always interested in playing it, and they have a hard time putting it down. They think it's just so neat. It's such a unique and interesting sound. This is a banjolin, which I built from a standard banjo body. It was an old part that I had sitting around, and a mandolin that was not very good. Actually, it was quite terrible, and I decided to use it for parts. So I took the neck off a mandolin, put that on the banjo. This is an 11-inch. And just for comparison, this is a banjolin with a smaller body. So you can hear the difference there. Let's go ahead to the back row and have a see what's going on here. This is another gold tone neck that I was able to acquire. Now I wasn't able to get this. This comes from the gold tone instrument, the Octajo, which I was not able to find. So I acquired some off-the-shelf parts and I assembled the instrument myself. Goldtone calls this the Octajo, which I think is a little confusing for people. I call it an octave banjolin. It is a full octave, or not, it's an octave below a banjolin, so it's an octave banjolin. Similar to how an octave mandolin is an octave below a mandolin. So here's the sound. Now, because of the interesting dynamic between the tension, the string length, it's not exactly great for chord bashing. So people that think that it will play like a tenor banjo are often a little confused. Because of the paired courses it does get muddy very fast, so chord bashing is not quite appropriate. But when it comes to tremolo, counter melody, and melody, this is an excellent instrument, and it's really has a unique voice, and you have some interesting range here. That's quite lovely. I really enjoy, of course, that pairs very nicely with other banjos. This is a custom build back here. This is a mandolin body with a banjo neck. I used cheaper parts just in case I messed something up, but I used a Carrera neck. These are the cheapest entry-level banjos that you can get, and they're not very good instruments, but if you're going to use the instrument parts for a hobby, if you're going to be doing instrument modifications, then Carrera is pretty good value for money at that point. This was a cheaper mandolin body, but it had a neat looking F-style, which has nice stage presence, really. So I need to just put some glue on that pad there. Now, what makes the wood-bodied banjo distinct and different, of course, is the wood top, which gives it this nice, distinct, warm, full sound. As you play closer to the fretboard, you get a nice, robust, warm sound. If you have family, a spouse, and kids, maybe they don't want to hear you going full speed on a 5-string throughout the night, but something like this is nice and mellow, and it doesn't travel quite as far. It's much softer and less projection, so it's quite pleasant, and it really rounds out your Banjo Orchestra. So that is my custom-built wood body banjo here. So at the top row, let's go ahead and have a look at a banjolele. This is a different scale length. This would be a tenor-sized banjolele, and this is a concert-sized banjolele. Now, what's interesting about a concert-sized banjolele is that it's basically the same size as a piccolo banjo. So I'm have set this aside, and I'll be converting it into a piccolo banjo. A piccolo banjo would basically play an octave up from a standard banjo. So this instrument, this tenor, will be playing the role of banjolele in my orchestra, and this will be converted into a piccolo banjo. I'll be using steel strings. It can support the tension. It'll be fine. I've modified a number of these instruments, and they work just fine. This is a custom instrument I've built. This is a banjo fiddle. I don't really have a bow on hand at the moment. Oh, let me go ahead and give you a sound sample. That is a nice, bright, plonky sound. Those are Nile gut strings from Aquila. It's really pleasant. They're great for chord bashing. They're not very good when it comes to melodies. They don't really have that presence. But in terms of chord bashing, it does have a nice bit of percussive appeal to that as well. So my banjo fiddle here. So I haven't tuned that up in a bit. I haven't used it in a while, as I've been recording with other instruments. So this is an instrument that took weeks and weeks of tinkering to get quite right, but it's working functionally. And if you'd like to like and subscribe to my channel, then I'll be sharing demonstrations of this, and I'll play some music with that as well. This is a custom banjo. This is a zither banjo that I've built for the current soundtrack I'm creating for work. It is set up, configured with 4 chords. You have G, C, D, and E minor. So it needs a little bit of tuning. Let's see here. And if you play closer to the middle here, then you'll get a nice harp-like sound. Right, and of course that'll need tuning. And this is a travel banjo. This is one of my favorite ones to play. One, because it's easy to just pick up. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's nice and light. It is tuned in open C, so the configuration is the same as a standard banjo, but it's up a few steps, and it sounds a little something like this. It's nice and bright. It has a very sweet voice because of the lower tension, and it's about the exact right scale length for a banjarine. A banjarine is one of the banjos that I'm missing for my Banjo Orchestra, but I've just ordered some parts, and I will be building a banjarine, but I've done it in such a way to where, just for fun, I want to see if I can use just pretty cheap parts that you can get on the internet, just off the shelf, pretty cheap parts. And if you can build a banjarine yourself, I'll be creating a video and sharing the process. So if you would like to see that, like and subscribe, and maybe we can build that together and we'll see. So this instrument, you can play at high dexterity, you can play at high speed. It's quite expressive, it's nice and bright, and it really does pair nicely with other banjos. All right, so I hope you've had fun and you've enjoyed taking a look at my Banjo Orchestra. Was there any particular one that was your favorite? You can let me know in the comments below which of these was your favorite banjo. Which one do you like best? Okay, and were there any ones that you've never seen before? Was there anything weird, any weird banjos you've never heard of before? Let me know. It's great to hear from you guys. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at those instruments. Okay, and now for that trailer for my OnlyFans page. All right, so this is one of the fans that I use, and it's pretty good. It's an entry-level, low tier one, but it works really well, and it has the volume changers up top, and of course it has the swivel adjuster just there. Pretty standard, but that's a pretty good fan. All right, now this is an older fan, circa 1970, 75. It's a bit older. It's not really functioning properly right now, so it has been disassembled, but it did have a high output. The shape of the blades here really contributed to that. It has the adjusters there, and it required a bit of tension on the wing nut on the other side in order to swivel up and down, and then there is a volume, a toggle in order to toggle the swivel. Okay, now this is one of those, technically it's a fan. It's more of a little space heater, but you can just turn that on, and it's a fan. It does not have a swivel like the other fans, and you can see you've only really got two volumes here. That's 50%, 100%, but that is technically a fan. I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at these instruments. I'm so glad that I could share this with you. I know many of you out there have a passion for music and interesting instruments just like me. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. I am working on a research project right now where I will be producing a documentary and music to recreate old Wild West music by restoring old-time instruments that were lost to history, or actually erased from history, and those would be zithers from the 1800s. If you would like to contribute to that project, I'll put a link in the description where you could just pitch in, you know, however much you would like to help me get strings to replace on these old-time zithers, to pay for cost of materials, and also many of these instruments I have to bid on auctions on eBay in order to win these, and these are extremely rare instruments, and often they go into the, you know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So if you would like to help that project, if you would like to help restore America's lost history of zithers and their usage during the Wild West era, you can do so by contributing in the PayPal link below. Take care, everyone. It's great to hear from you. Be well, and I can't wait to share my upcoming builds. I have a couple builds. I'm just editing them now, and I will share my new instruments with you very soon. Take care. We'll see you.